Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, you guys are grandparents. If you can believe it. Yep, their daughters. Rumor Willis revealed that she gave birth to a daughter at home. This is the first grandchild for Demi and Bruce. Rumor revealed her daughter's name, Louetta Isley Thomas Willis. Another first-time mom, Kaylee Cuoco, named her one-month-old daughter Matilda, but calls her by the nickname Tildy. Convicted fraudster Elizabeth Holmes started her 11-year prison sentence tomorrow. She recently named her daughter Invicta, which is Latin for unconquered. Yep. But one mom on TikTok blasted an influencer for naming their child Cozy. Watch.
I'm saying as far as like names that are cutesy nicknames, those aren't going to age well, you know? And you can name your child whatever you want, and that's fine. It's your kid. But if you're going to name your kid something like Flower, just sit on it, you know? Just sleep on it. Try to, consider that name for an adult and make sure that's what you really want for them.
Oh, Erica had a visceral reaction. What's going on, E?
Oh, no, I just thought, how about we all just mind our own business? Everybody is going to have, the thing about names is we all have a name that we can't stand because of somebody who had that name in the past, and now everybody who has that name, we can't stand it. So you really are, you kind of messed up if you do, you messed up if you don't. You can go traditional, you can go with creative, you can do whatever. People are still not going to like your name for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also your name is going to change as you get older. I mean, you're going to tell people to call you different things depending on what age you are. I remember I had a friend of mine who went by his middle name for a long time because he was embarrassed of his first name, which is a cool name, Caesar.
Oh,
and then when he became 21, he was like, wait a second, I have a super cool name, and that's what he goes by now. But it's as you age and evolve, people will call you Scott and Scotty. That's going to change. But you trying to predict that when they're babies, I think is silly, and stay out of people's business with that.
Jeff, you've always been
my kid.
guarded about your children's
for sure.
names. You didn't tell anybody. What was the reason behind that?
Well, listen, if you name your kid something weird, again, we try to pad this world with people aren't going to do anything to you. If you name your kid something weird, there's going to be some sort of repercussion, consequences, and I'm saying on the schoolyard, you know what I mean? On the playground. You're going to get made fun of a little bit. When you're older, it's very unique and cool and all that stuff. I was very conscious about rhyming words that rhymed with bad words and all the things like that. So you do have to be conscious of your name, in my mind. Do whatever you want. Name your kid Cozy.
Really quickly, Jeff, my father's name was Otha. And it was a strange name, and you got to think kids are more inclusive now. But he was he got in a lot of fights over that.
Yeah.
His brothers are Donald and Gerald, his sister.
Otha's different.
Yeah, but that name stood out in the family and also on the playground, so it's a real thing.
Was that a family name, Otha?
Not that I know of, no.
See, we have a family name Amos, which I love. Love my Uncle Amos. May he rest in peace. But that was the issue. People were like, I want Amos to continue to be a part of the family legacy, but everyone's so scared of what is going to happen by naming your child Amos. And I'm like, well, I know what Amos 1, Amos 2, and Amos 3 did, and because of that, our family was free. So I love the name Amos.
Right.
Yeah. In Judaism, you don't name someone after someone when they're still alive.
Right.
They think the angel of death, and this is just sort of a superstition, I believe, can come and mistake the wrong person. So I can't name it after someone if they're still alive, which is so interesting. But I really you brought this up earlier, and I'm not trying to take your point at all, but that being named after something or someone, my sister Catherine with an A is Catherine Graham, the owner of the Washington Post, or Catherine Hepburn. It's a certain way it's spelled. I always think that's cute when you really have a little hit to it, a little,
I got you.
Also, don't tell anybody your baby names because I don't need your opinion.
Seriously, when it comes to
That's bad.
I'll ask my mom and dad, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? But I had friends that weren't even my close friends that were like, what are you going to name your daughter? And I was like, Sophie. And I had one friend in particular that was like, oh, that's kind of like an older woman's name. And I said, actually, it's my late grandmother's name. And I've always wanted my firstborn to be named Sophie. So yeah, your opinion's not going to change it, and it's personal.
But it's going to change my opinion about you.
Oh, it did.
Yes.
For sure. That's why I didn't tell anybody.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it did. All right, Laura Dern and her mom, actress Diane Ladd, have become much closer after a doctor said Diane had only 6 months to live. Back in 2018, Laura forced her mom to go on walks every day to help her with her diagnosis. Laura recorded their conversations, which she then turned into a new book. She said her mom opened up about losing her first child at 18 months old and also opened up about her painful divorce from Laura's dad, Bruce Dern. Laura told Hoda Kotb she avoided asking these tough questions to her mom all these years. Watch.
I was shocked at how little I'd asked her. The hard stuff because I thought, oh, I don't want to bring it up and hurt her. But even the simple stuff. I've been raised by an actor. I've worked alongside my mother, and yet I'd never asked, why did you want to become an actress? From this tiny town in Mississippi, from a veterinarian father. What was the first movie that ever inspired you? What's your favorite color?
What is your favorite color?
Which, by the way, I didn't know. She was like Rose, like the name I was first given by my mother.
Wow. Laura said it turns out Diana had been misdiagnosed and now is doing well.
What a gift.
Right?
I mean, what a gift, because they would have never had that conversation. I know it's easy to kind of look and say, well, my dad never talked to me. Well, I guarantee you, ask your mom and your dad what it was like to talk to their parents. You forget, our grandparents especially came from a generation of kids that are to be seen and not heard and don't speak until spoken to. So the idea of even learning how to converse with another adult was an impossibility. I grew up with, don't ask grown folks where they're going. Like, I know it sounds silly, but we like, where are you going? Don't ask grown people where they're like. So we're really the first generation to be like, how do you feel about this, Sophie? Lawson, would you like to go to the park or do you want to stay? There was no question. So the idea of like figuring out who your dad was, he probably hadn't done that work to figure out who he was and who his mom was and who he came from. So it's very difficult to judge the older generation when they had no practice because they didn't have the luxury, because they worked the jobs that were really dangerous and exhausting, and they went to wars and came back and didn't have the time to sit on TikTok and figure out how to say something the right way.
Or didn't have mental health support.
I was going to say the trauma for both.
Can you imagine that?
Like Holocaust survivors, war veterans. These are things that put
Black
up
and
a
brown
block.
people with all the oppression. Can
Like
you imagine
you couldn't
the trauma?
talk about it, and we also didn't talk about mental health. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I just think
that's a great point.
A huge part of it. All of a sudden, there's a vocabulary now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a sensitive situation as someone who has, and I'm still actively very much doing this, especially with my father, because my mother and I have always had open lines of communication, and my father and I have really worked to have more open lines of communication. And it really, for me, I realized that I've gone through therapy for so many years, and a lot of the issues that I had, of course, are stemming from, my childhood and things that have happened, but it wasn't my parents' fault.
Right.
And so it had to be like the separation between how I was processing and the help that I needed, that they didn't have the tools to even understand how to get them to me. And so now when I have conversations with my dad, my dad's been in mortuary science for over 25 years, and he has a funeral home. And I asked him just recently, how do you deal with so much grief and death every day? And that has been something that I wanted to know from my father, because it's very difficult when we're sitting here constantly having
You could relate to that in a way, yeah.
And that was a conversation that opened up so many other conversations for us. So I really say, regardless of what your situation is, if you are open or curious, at least try to do something to have that that starting period, because some of those questions, if you don't have answered, they might be stewing around in your brain for the rest of your life. So if your parents are here and accessible in that way, just try it.
And make sure.
And your grandparents.
And make sure you hit record. Record it on a sound voice memo, record it on
permission.
With their permission, of course. But again, even just tell me your history, because it'll just be passed down for generations.
That's a good note.
It's a really good idea to just get a voice memo.
That's a great note.
Again, their permission.
Love that. Okay, can you be best friends with your kids? Kim Kardashian and her 9-year-old daughter, North, are close and often post videos on their TikTok account, which Kim says she controls. Kim recently posted a pic of North and captioned it, "My best friend." Okay, so this is just bringing up the larger conversation of, is it healthy to be best friends with your kids? What would you say?
To a certain extent. My boys are my best friends. My wife is my best friend. But as far as my boys goes, I'm also their father.
Right.
Okay, and there's got to be a separation at some point. I'm going to be telling you what you do. My friends, maybe not so much. Yeah, go do that. Why not? I'm your father. I'm trying to teach you right from wrong. The people who hang out with their kids that are in bars with their kids, and I'm not talking about when you're older and you go have a drink with your mom or something. I'm talking about going out to clubs. with your child. That's disgusting. And there's a lot of people out there
Is
like
there really?
Yes.
Oh, Drew Barrymore still talks about how it affected her, how her mom literally would take her to clubs at 13 years old to give her access to that industry. So it's very self-serving when you unpack it, even though it might seem like you're having a good time with your mom.
Right.
It's self-serving for that adult. You have 3 kids.
Yes.
Later ages, how do you decipher? Because right now it's really easy for me to be like, okay, I love you, you're my best friend, but you're young, I'm your mom. When they get older, is that more difficult?
I would say that it's easier because you start to kind of see who they are and who they're becoming, and you know, you can really fall in love with like the adult that they are. You know, damn it, I knew. No, I'm gonna fight through it. You know, and it's like that's when they're young. It's terrifying. They're trying to kill themselves from like age 0 to 2.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're just trying to figure out middle schools and school districts. And a lot of it isn't fun, you know, initially. And then after a while, they can fix their own sandwiches. And then they're starting to have sleepovers and they say something funny. And then you look and they're starting to sit like your wife used to. And you're like, wow, this is, and you see this, all the work that you put in. And then as soon as they're ready to go to college.
Wow. My son made, I was downstairs working out and I came up and I'm like, where's mom? I'm like, why do you have breakfast? And Lawson's like, I got late in breakfast this morning. So he climbed up and got the cereal and then went in the fridge and he's like, we're out of milk too. And I was like, dude, when did this happen? Like, when did this happen?
He like left you a note.
No, he told me. He's like, we're out of milk.
And he got late in breakfast
Got
too?
late in breakfast, yeah. I was like, what? So Al, I totally get it. I'm like,
Well
dude,
done.
time
He's
is
modeling
flying.
you two. Well
Yes.
done.
It's so sweet.
Well, he just got breakfast. He didn't like.
Dude,
you know,
he's 6
solve-
years old and
It's a
he's
big
making
deal.
sure his brother's being fed in the morning.
That's a
It's
big deal.
amazing.
I don't even
That's
do that
cute.
for myself.
We're out of time and we're out of milk.
Yeah.